Hello there, a warm welcome to Africa News. I'm Rochelle Ferguson with the top stories at this hour. Liberia admits that 17 suspected Ebola patients are still missing after a health centre in the capital was looted on Saturday. A rights group accuses Kenya's anti-terror police of carrying out extrajudicial killings. We speak to Human Rights Watch in New York. And South African teenagers seek refuge from gangland violence by taking to their surfboards and riding waves. But first, despite earlier denials, Liberian authorities now admit that 17 suspected Ebola patients are still missing after fleeing a medical centre in the capital, Monrovia. Protesters looted the quarantine clinic in the West Point slum on Saturday, some shouting Ebola is a hoax. Other looters were said to be angry that patients were being treated in their area. Of at least 1,145 deaths recorded in West Africa, 400 people are known to have died from the virus in Liberia, one of the country's worst affected by the virus. That's alongside Sierra Leone and Guinea. Well, the World Health Organization has called for exit screenings on all travellers from affected countries at international airports, seaports and major border crossings. Cameroon, meanwhile, has closed its borders with Nigeria after the Nigerian Health Ministry said today it has 12 confirmed cases of the virus. That's up from 10 last week, of which 5 have almost fully recovered. The US ambassador to Nigeria says the focus in fighting Ebola should be on isolation and screening.
This is an issue where we have to keep working hard. It may be with us for a while, but there are some encouraging signs. The Emergency Operations Center, I understand, is working well. The isolation ward, I understand, is working well. So this is an example where we just have to, as part of the broad partnership between our two countries, we have to just keep collaborating and cooperating and working hard.
Well, in a move effective as of midnight on Tuesday, Kenya's announced it's to close its border to passengers travelling from Liberia, Sierra Leone and Guinea. Kenya hasn't reported any cases of the virus, but that hasn't stopped the country's businesses suffering a downturn in trade. Nicolas Germain has this report.
Ebola has already killed more than 1,100 people. It's also had a serious economic impact, especially in the 3 worst-hit countries, Guinea, Liberia and Sierra Leone. For example, in Liberia, costs linked to the virus in the second quarter totaled $12 million. In Guinea, GDP should fall from 3.5 to 2.5%, according to the World Bank. And several airlines have cancelled their flights to Guinea, Liberia and Sierra Leone. And West Africa is not the only region where business has been affected by the Ebola virus. Kenya in East Africa has announced that starting Tuesday, it will bar passengers travelling from the 3 most hit countries. Even before this ban, taxi drivers in Nairobi said there were fewer customers.
Before the Ebola virus affected West Africa, I used to do 6 trips a day, but with the cancellations, I'm doing 2 or 3 trips a day and sometimes none. This is my only source of income to feed my family. As taxi drivers who work at the airport, we've been very affected.
Tour guides say some tourists are confused and think Ebola has reached East Africa.
The moment we are in the high season in Kenya, so this is also going to affect the flowing of tourism because they fear now to come to Kenya thinking it's also part of the affected countries.
Among the companies that have already suspended flights to Guinea, Liberia and Sierra Leone are British Airways and Emirates. Last week, the World Health Organization said the risk of Ebola transmission on airplanes is low, and it does not consider air transport hubs at high risk for further spread of the virus.
Still in Kenya, an international human rights group says there's strong evidence that the country's anti-terror police unit has committed extrajudicial killings and enforced disappearances. Human Rights Watch said today there are at least 10 documented cases of unlawful killings and 10 cases of enforced disappearances. Some suspects were allegedly shot dead in public while others were abducted. The terror unit was set up in 2003, 5 years after Al-Qaeda simultaneously bombed the US embassies in Kenya and Tanzania. Well, I'm joined now by Jahan Henry, who's in New York of Human Rights Watch. Jahan, hello to you. Firstly, how prevalent do we think that this kind of violence actually is within Kenya's anti-terror unit?
Thank you. Unfortunately, we think it's quite prevalent. Our report is not the first to document these killings and disappearances. In fact, it adds to a litany of already existing evidence that other organizations and us have documented in the past. So the abuses by Kenya's anti-terror police unit are, in fact, quite well established at this point, and we're calling on the Kenyan authorities to ensure that these practices do not continue and that they are investigated. We're also asking donors to probe these allegations and to suspend aid where there's credible information of abuse within the unit.
Now, Johanna, I mean, it has to be said that this counter-terrorism units get significant support from and training from the US and UK. Does this report implicate those countries?
Indeed. I mean, those two donors are significant donors to the ATPU. There is clear evidence that the ATPU has been implicated in these abuses. So the donors have an obligation to ensure that these abuses are probed and that police or those found to be responsible are held to account, but also to not provide assistance to known abusive units. So the United States has a law in particular that prohibits this. And so we would ask that they suspend aid where they find abuses have occurred. Our report confirms many, and as I said earlier, it adds to pre-existing evidence of abuses in this unit. So yes, indeed, those two donors should be taking action as a result of these credible allegations.
OK, Johanna Henry of Human Rights Watch, that's where we leave it for now. Thanks very much for joining us. Authorities in South Africa say at least 9 people have died after a building under renovation collapsed in Johannesburg today. Builders were reportedly among the casualties. It's unknown at this stage what caused the building to collapse. The government has sent inspectors to the site to launch an investigation.
From our side as to what caused the building to collapse. But however, we can confirm that now there was a construction taking place in this. This is a double-story building. That tells that now the side of it has basically collapsed and crashed into the people.
Africa's first homegrown military aircraft has flown its first test flight, signalling a new chapter in the continent's aviation history. The advanced high-performance light aircraft completed its flight on Wednesday before stopping at an airport outside the South African capital, Johannesburg. The aircraft took to the skies after 3 years and over 300,000 hours of work on its design and construction. Finally, teenagers in South Africa are seeking refuge from gang warfare by taking to their surfboards. 250 young people are learning how to surf with an NGO called Waves for Change, which utilises sport to engage young people suffering from emotional and physical trauma.
Not many teenagers would feel safer in shark-infested seawater than in their own neighbourhood. But these youngsters from Khayelitsha Township just outside Cape Town feel just that.
It keeps me away from gangsters and it makes me feel happy when I'm here because we have many coaches here that are protecting us.
When I was not here, I was used to be a gangster, but now since I joined surfing, I'm out of gangster now.
The poor neighbourhoods in South Africa's Cape Flats are synonymous with gangs, glue sniffing and guns. Many of the teenagers who joined the surfing programme had barely seen the beach, despite living nearby. Now, thanks to an NGO called Waves for Change, about 250 are donning their wetsuits and learning to surf.
Teaching, surfing, we give the kids the life skills and we also give them therapy as much as they are coming from different domestic situations.
Riding the waves is not without risk. One surfer was attacked by a great white shark just a few kilometres down the beach. But due to the economic legacy of apartheid, the majority of surfers and shark attack victims are white, something these teens have a sense of humour about.
We never hear that there was black people who were eaten by the shark. Always white people only. So then we told us the shark will never eat us.
Although these youngsters were born after apartheid, many of them are still trapped by poverty and attitudes towards race. But on the waves, none of that matters, giving them a sense of finally being free.
Well, you're up to date with your African news. More international news to follow. Do stay tuned to France 24.